I'm extremely happy that MMTTC has invited me to come and speak on gender sensitization issues and challenges. I'll be taking 1.5 hours. I'll just raise certain of the issues for which perhaps actually you may have an answer. If you do not have an answer, we'll discuss and try to find out, right, whether what we can actually do to minimize this gender discrimination. The basic question actually is what exactly is gender sensitization is. Gender sensitization is the modification of behavior towards the other sex. Means a person belong to a particular actually sex, what is his actually behavior and disposition towards the other sex. That exactly what decides gender sensitization. Means how a man actually treats a woman or a transgender, or a woman actually treats a man or transgender is the crux of the issue here. And why actually it is required? Why it is required? See, usually gender sensitization actually involves basic norm of equality. See, human beings are all equal, as our constitution says and as our scriptures say, and what we say actually in a society, a civilized society should actually treat everyone equally. So wherever actually find a kind of equality, a norm of equality amongst all sexes, that is one of the very important issues actually of gender sensitization. If someone doesn't treat the other sex actually equally, he is not a gender sensitive person, that we can say. And secondly, it's a fairness of treatment of women, men, and transgenders. This becomes actually crux of the issue. See, I'll tell you, men always actually think that men are different from women, and women are different actually from transgenders. This is actually the problem that creates actually everyone into some kind of a confusion. See, our law actually says that all are equal, all human beings are equal. But our constitution actually says when all are equal, but some are more equal, it says. Because who are those people who are more equal? Those people who have not been able to receive actually the protection of the society, of the law, should be treated actually as more equals, because they need actually some kind of an additional protection. That is why we say they are more equal. So here, usually women, children, and people belonging to the lower strata of the society and transgenders. These are all human beings, no doubt, but the society do not actually treat them as equals. There is always a discrimination in this regard. And nextly, equal access to resources by all sexes. See, I'll give you some data. Perhaps you will be really surprised to see this data. I'll give you some data. How actually the resources that should be freely and equally available to all living beings in a particular country or a particular region is not available to all because they belong to a different sex. So equal access. So for example, if at all, if quite a number of actually women I see on the screen, you are all sitting here today as professors actually of certain subjects because the law provides actually that kind of a protection. So you are not been actually selected because you have been a woman. You have been selected because you are a meritorious actually person. You can stand on par with any other man. That's the reason why you are sitting there, right? So equal access to resources by all sexes is not there actually in the society or in the world, actually in majority of the government. I'll give you how actually sometimes administration actually neglects these class of people. And nextly is breaking stereotypes. See, we assign certain of the responsibilities to certain sexes. Say, for example, women, they should cook, bear children, take care of actually household chores. These are actually the responsibilities of women, we say. If these things are done by men, they are not respected. Men actually are not respected. I don't have to say. If a man actually cooks food at home, he is not respected actually by other men. He says, you're supposed to not to do it. Your wife is supposed to do that. So breaking these stereotypes actually is the essence of gender sensitization. Nothing wrong actually if a woman drives a car. Nothing wrong actually a woman actually flies an aircraft. Nothing wrong if a woman actually cooks, right? So it should be equally available to everybody. So these are the points actually which hinge around the gender sensitization. Gender discrimination actually will be in relation to women, means men and transgenders look at actually women from a different perspective, and men actually look at the other two sexes actually from a different perspective, and transgenders. Most of us actually do not know their actual condition. I'll speak in detail about actually transgenders later. So there are about actually less than 1% actually transgenders in the world. Less than 1%. In India, about actually not more than 5 lakh actually transgenders are there. Their life is a big misery, big misery, I'll tell you, because they can't be hired for any kind of an employment. They can't participate actually any of the social activities like any other man or woman, or they can't simply take part in any of the activities anywhere, I'll tell you, in any manner. It is certainly not possible. They have been totally discriminated, and they suffer a lot, I'll tell you. And now, there, under these circumstances, certain of the laws have been made to protect them. I'll be talking to you about actually transgenders later in detail. Coming to this vital statistics, perhaps actually it's an eye opener. You must actually listen to this very carefully. See, sex ratio, if you look at actually sex ratio, there are 106 males for every 100 females. So I'll tell you, I mean, about actually 6 actually per 100, you find actually more men and less women. If you look into, in fact, actually sex ratio actually in certain states, Haryana and Punjab actually paint a very dismal picture. About 860 actually females for every 1000 actually males. This is something horrible. This is a serious interference actually with order of nature. So imagine, I'll tell you, 500 women for 1000 men. I'll tell you, even today in Punjab, and anybody coming from Punjab, you'll be knowing Haryana coming from Haryana, you'll be knowing, I'll tell you, there'll be dearth actually of brides, because there are more men and very few actually women to get married. That is one thing. Say female actually population is about 48 and 48.5%, male about 51.5, out of actually 145.09 crore population in the country. So 48.5% actually is women. They should have been actually 50%, but actually their population has come down actually by 1.5%. And female child population is still dismal. It is 47.8%, much less than what compared to the grown-up adults. So sex ratio in 2011 actually was 940 women for 1000 men. 1911. It has gone up now. It has gone up actually 457. These days, actually, there is a little, interest actually towards having a female baby is coming up. Maybe I don't know what is the reason. There is a little actually interest among the people to have a girl child at home, right? Unlike actually 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 40 years ago, it was actually all male dominated. And out of 150.18 million households in rural area, 11.1% are headed by females. You all know it, I'll tell you. See, nearly 89% of the families actually in India are headed by men. And women hardly, in fact, actually become the head of the families, except actually in 11 actually percent of the family, households. And most of these actually families are in Northeast, where women play a very, very dominant role. I don't think actually anybody is here actually from Northeast in this group, right? If you look into actually the Northeastern states data, you will be able to find actually women actually far better compared to other parts of the country. As per census of 2011, 74% actually literate actually comprising 65.5% females, 82 actually female, I mean males. Means women actually were not allowed to, girl children actually were not allowed to go to school. It was actually male children actually who received priority. And it has gone up actually by 2023. Women actually literacy rate are going to school. That rate actually has gone up to 77.7%. It's a very, very welcome actually kind of a development. Look at actually this one. 70% of poor people are women. In the world, 70% of poor people are women. And only 30% poor people actually are men. Means women actually have been driven to a kind of a situation where they have to remain actually poor. And 67% of hours of work, but earn only 10% of the income. Out of 100 hours of work, 67% actually is carried out by women, but their actual share of earning is only 10%. So the people actually who 33% actually of work hours they do, men, they eat away 90% actually of the share, right? So therefore, women actually have been still relegated. Data may be slightly old, maybe a couple of years actually older data. I don't think actually the present data is any different vastly from what I am telling you. And they own only percent of the world's property. In world, out of 100 of property owned by people, only 1% actually is owned by women. So it only goes to show that actually where exactly we place women. 60 to 80% of food in developing countries are produced by women. So you'll be shocked at 60 to 80% of the food that we eat is produced by women in the world. And 10 to 20% are in managerial jobs. Like you people, I'll tell you who are sitting here. People like you, I'll tell you there are only 10 to 20%. Remaining actually they don't hold actually such high positions. Managerial post only 20 maximum. Less than 5% are heads of state. You can count, I'll tell you in your hand, how many people actually are prime minister and presidents of various actually countries? Very, very few. Very, very few. I'll give you that detail in later. School entry 88% in 2005 and it has become 96% in 2012. This is a welcome actually sign. And women actually are still bound by patriarchal norms. So in your household, I'll tell you, in an Indian woman actually faces a patriarchal actually norms where men dominate, they set the rules, they make us follow. That's it. And I'll give you, this is slightly older data, maybe slightly different now, but still actually has some kind of significance. 18% do not go to nearby Kiran shop. 18% of women, I'll tell you, can't even go to the next actual nearest shop to buy grocery because they need a man. And woman is not supposed to go all alone. And 50% do not travel alone. This is another tragedy, I'll tell you. It might have come down now, but even now, I'll tell you, there is quite a number of women, I'll tell you, will not be allowed to travel alone because they always need a male companion. And not only that, 25% of the women met their husbands before marriage. Only 25% of people actually met their husbands before marriage. Now I'll tell you, in educated class, this may not be true, I'll tell you. Before marriage, the boy and the girl actually will have talked to each other, spoken to each other, and then subsequently they decided to marry. But still, there are plenty of actually families where they do not allow actually their girls to talk to their prospective husbands before marriage. So that is there. And moving further, I'll tell you, 2.2% in women in India drink alcohol. I think this percentage must have gone up now. Only 2.2% of women in India drink alcohol, they say. In metropolitan cities, I'll tell you, female actually drink more than this percentage. And about 10.8% chew pan masala, they say. Pan masala, I'll tell you, chewing pan masala actually is a regular actually kind of a thing in villages. Women, men together actually they chew pan masala. But women actually 10% chew pan masala and 1.4% actually smoke, women smoke. Anta. I don't know. You should actually be able to tell us in your college whether actually girls smoke. Anta. So they say our data say 1.4% actually girls smoke. And who controls actually more? Rich control women or poor people control women? So I'm sure I'll tell you, most of you would say actually the rich people control actually women. No, 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 it is other way around. I'll tell you. Poor people actually control their actually, I mean, rich people control their women more than poor people. Poor people, they can't simply control women because of the simple reason that women also work actually equally. The contribution actually for the family earning actually comes equally from women. She has a 50% say in the family. She has every right to, in fact, actually say and put her actually opinion on the husband. It is possible. The husband has to listen. Whereas actually in rich family, it is not. Men actually sometimes work and the women actually control it. And agriculture sector is the largest actually employer of women. 86% actually of agriculture labor are women. And women occupy less than 10 out of 71 actual ministerial position in the union government. We have 71 ministers actually in the union government. Less than 10 actually women there. In Karnataka, it is pathetic. There is only one woman minister, child and family welfare. And that is exclusively for a female actually minister is given. No male actually can occupy that particular post. And there are only 3 women judges in Supreme Court. We have about 31, 32 actually judges in Supreme Court. Only 3 women. 50% of nearly 50% of the population actually are women, but we have only 3 judges actually. And so far, you have not been able to see a chief justice being a woman in India. And 54 women judges out of 634 judges in different high courts. In different high courts, 24 high courts, I'll tell you, there are 634 actual high court judges. Only 54 are women. They are also quite, the number is quite small. And cruelty by husband and relatives continue to occupy the highest share of 43% of the total offences. Offences against women, you know, which is the highest offence actually that is committed against the woman? 43% actually cruelty by husband. The husband and the family members actually commit cruelty against women, followed by molestation, kidnapping, and rape, right, etc., where women actually will be facing plenty of actually problems. Then what are the challenges? Like gender-based violence. See, in every year in India, about actually 98 lakhs to 1 crore actually cases are being actually registered in police stations. Nearly 1 crore, right? Every year. Under IPC and various actually laws, local laws and special laws. Nearly 1 crore cases. After that, actually 1 crore cases, about 5.5 lakh, 5 to 5.5 lakh cases. The slightly older data, 22. The present actually 2024 data, if you look into it, not less than 5 lakh cases are exclusively committed against women. Exclusively committed against women. And with their queer, and out of this 5 lakh actually cases, 49% of the cases actually are committed by their own actually family members like husband, mother-in-law and all that, father, brother, etc., etc. And Dalit and Adivasi women actually are the hardest hit, right? They receive actually the majority actually of this offense are committed against them. And gender pay gap, right? I'll tell you, are all in an organized sector. There can't be any pay discrimination. Men and women actually draw equal salary. Am I right? They equal salary. But whereas actually unorganized sector, I'll tell you, even today, plenty. See, I'll tell you, women earn 76 for every 1,100 rupees. Men earn in salaried jobs. I'm talking. I'm not talking about wages. I'm talking about actually salaried jobs, where women actually earn only 76, where men actually earn 100 rupees. On an average, women spend 7 hours daily on unpaid work, housework. So 7 hours a day a woman actually works, for which there is no wages or salary or whatever it is, and compared to 2 hours by men. Men work 2 hours only without salary or without wages, whereas women actually work for 7 hours without actually wages. And less than 3% actually women hold CEO actually roles in major companies. And political representation actually is very dismal, from 7.2% in 1995 to 13.8% actually in 2024, but remains actually limited. See, the world average actually is about 19%. In India, it's about 9%. 9% of the women actually get into legislatures or in politics. And coming to education, primary and higher secondary levels remain high, indicating strong female enrollment. There's one actually here sober point that you must notice is there is more actually girl enrollment actually in schools these days, and performance actually of the girls actually is more than actually the boys. The performance of the girls. Fluctuations exist at upper primary and elementary level, suggesting actually challenges. And economic participation, if you say labor force participation, it was actually only 49% in 17 and 18, and it is 60% labor actually participation actually of the women. And bank accounts, it's good to know that 39.2% of the bank accounts and contribute 39.7% of total deposits. Out of the total actually bank accounts, about 40% actually women hold it. Nearly 40% of the deposits are there by women. This, especially Jan Dhan Yojana, where everyone actually is meant to open the account. This is one of the results of it. Entrepreneurship, I'll tell you, very few. Financial actually inclusion. See, there are about 6.6 million actually women who hold actually demat account, right? Not more than. And political representation. Someone has. Please actually kindly mute your speaker. Someone's speaker actually is unmuted. Please. Political representation, female voter turnout actually 65% in 2024. Female turnout. And slightly down from actually 67% in 2019. In 2024, I'll tell you, in India, female actually did not come forward to vote. There was slightly dip in that. Social attitude and discrimination. You see that 2020, a significant share of Indian adults agreed that wife must obey her husband. Look, significant of men actually say wife should actually obey the husband. There is absolutely no other go. And many respondents still believe men have more right to jobs. Means men actually have the right over jobs than actually females. And this kind of actually continued imbalance actually continues. That is one thing. Despite actually constitutional guarantees and legal reforms. We have, I'll tell you, all our actually fundamental rights are equally applicable to women also. And there are reservations actually in favor of women under the constitution and are various actually laws. In spite of not only that, there are at least actually 36 laws which are exclusively meant for women in this country. We have 11,000 pieces of legislation in this country. Out of that, actually 36 are meant only for women. There is not a single law, I'll tell you, which is in favor of men only. All laws are actually equally applicable to both men and women, but there are 36 laws, I'll tell, which are exclusively applicable to women for their protection. Structural challenges, in spite of that underreporting of the crimes, many of the crimes that actually take place against the women, not reported. And workplace discrimination is still there. I'll tell you, 89% of women actually do not know that they are actually sexually harassed at workplace. Many of you are sitting here, you do not really understand what exactly is sexual harassment is. When you are not actually given your due place, I'll tell you, in any kind of the discourse, I'll tell you, that is actually sexual harassment. That is what exactly it means. Be that as it may. Coming further, gender violence and law. What are actually the laws? There is no region in the world, go to any part of the world, I'll tell you, there is no country, no culture in which women's freedom actually from violence has been secured. There will be violence against women. Even the most advanced country like actually America, the most actually advanced democracy, the highest number of actually wife batterers actually are there in America. The US husbands actually are the ones who actually beat their wives most in the world. The most developed democracy, this is their actually data. Several forms of violence are more prevalent in certain parts of the world, often developing countries. For example, take dowry violence. It is an exclusive prerogative actually of India. This dowry actually is a problem in Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and India. Nowhere in actually in any other part of the world. So, but if there is any dowry problem in any part of the world, I'll tell you it's because of Indians who live there. If there is dowry in America, I'll tell you it's because of Indians who live in America have dowry problem. Certainly not actually Americans, right? That's it. Secondly, acid throwing, actually you must be knowing it. There are about actually 10 to 50, maybe 1,500 to 2,000 actually acid victims in this country. This is the most heinous crime of all crimes, I'll tell you, most heinous crime, where acid actually is thrown on the face, where face actually gets burnt irreparably. And the entire shape actually of the face actually is so mutilated, I'll tell you, you can't even recognize actually the person anymore. That is the worst form. The woman actually will not die, but she has to carry that scar till her death, and it causes actually immense damage to her psyche. And acid throwing, I'll tell you, is in India also is a prevalent offense. Mostly it is prevalent in South Asia, including Cambodia. These are the countries, I'll tell you, where it is mostly prevalent. And honor killing, you all must be knowing it, honor killing, because your daughter or son actually gets married to someone who is not equal to us in the society. This is social discrimination. He marries someone or she marries someone who is socially, in fact, not above us, something like that. See, in Middle East and South Asia, it is rampant. It is rampant, including India. Female genital mutilation, many of you may not be knowing it, I'll tell you. Female genital is mutilated only to make her sexual actually urge to come down, to bring down the sexual urge. Right? This is a very, very bad and cruel actually human act. Nobody can excuse. Usually it happens in Africa, lesser extent in Middle East and some other parts of Asia. In Africa, I'll tell you, women actually are of a different actually physiological structure. Their certain other parties actually are parts of the bodies are actually so prominent, I'll tell you, that could actually become focal point actually for sexual attraction. In order to subdue that, what they do is they do actually what is actually called breast ironing, where hot iron actually is put on their actually breast and pressed it so hard for a very long time, where their breast actually gets compressed and the prominence actually is removed. This is deliberately done to make her unattractive. And female genital mutilation, actually, I'll tell you, they do it to an extent where they damage actually female sex organ to an extent where sometimes actually they chop it off the top of it, or they suture it, they stitch it and close it. And the girls actually are as young as 3 years, 4 years, 5 years old. And sometimes I'll tell you, the girls actually will never come out of that actually kind of injury for their life, And the girls who do not know anything about the sex, the people damage their actual sexual organs. The girls actually start blaming their organ. Why the hell this organ is in my body, which is causing so much of pain for us? Look, this is a human tragedy. Marriage by abduction, they take away the girl whom they want to marry, and usually it is found actually, even India is also found, but very rare. Ethiopia, Central Asia, and Caucasus. This is where actually it is rampant. Abuse related to payment of bride price, what we call actually dowry here. It is also actually there in other parts in different name. Dowry price they call it. Sub-Saharan Africa and such places actually it is there. This is a violent actual discrimination. And domestic violence, right? Tell you, this is not a violence actually on the street in a public place I'm talking about. This is a violence, I'll tell you, takes place within our actually home, within our house. This is actually called domestic violence. Look here, 18 lakh girls actually died in last 2 decades. 18 lakh girls, not the boys. Only girls actually died because nobody wanted actually girl child to be inside the family. Mysteriously they died. Mysteriously they died. Over 1.58 lakh births took place between 85 and 2005. It was found that spousal violence against wives increased the risk of death among female children, but not male children. I'll tell you, because the woman actually gave birth to a child, and the woman actually had to undergo some kind of harassment by the husband because she gave birth to a female child. And 1.25 lakh women in 28 states, a survey was conducted in 25 states. About more than a lakh women actually survey was conducted. In that survey, 40% of women actually reported, you know what they said? They said they were beaten by their husbands at some point of the time. 40% of the women say, my husband actually has beaten me. 40% of the women. So where 28 states of India where actually survey was conducted. And 51% of 75% actually was surveyed, they say, they find anything wrong with assaulting their wives. And husbands, when they asked, why did you beat your wife? There is nothing wrong, wife is there to beat. Means it is such a casual remark, I'll tell you. A husband actually has acquired a right to beat his wife. I can't beat your wife, therefore I beat my wife. Right? So that's it. And about 54%, this is more tragic. About 54% of the women actually surveyed thought that such violence was justified on one or the other account. You know what actually women said? Nothing wrong in actually in beating. Anta. If my husband beats me, there's nothing wrong because I've done something wrong. My husband actually has thrashed me. Nothing. So women acknowledge and accept actually this kind of a violence by husband. Justified. This is tragic. And in a hospital, about 450 out of 450 females, means 430 female actually fetuses actually were removed out of 450, in fact, actually pregnancies. Means except 20, the rest actually were removed because they were all actually female fetuses. And barbaric ways actually of, say for example, there are very advanced mechanism actually or a technique to abort or female feticide is there. But at the same, there are actually very crude methods. Say for example, smearing opium actually as just born baby. A baby is born, they smear actually opium actually on the lips actually of the baby. The baby actually tastes it and goes into some kind of high this thing. Then after some time dies. And tactical maneuvering of umbilical cord. If the child is not wanted, they maneuver the umbilical cord, the child dies. And sometimes actually they drown the child actually in a milk pot and kill it. And sometimes they feed the just born baby with paddy. They put paddy into the just born baby. The paddy, once actually put into the mouth, it swells, the baby dies. These are some of the most cruel and barbaric ways in which actually female children actually. And millions of girls actually, infants go missing every year. You do actually read in the newspaper, a girl missing, a woman missing, etc., etc. Have you ever actually found a news item saying that actually missed girl has been found, missed woman has been found? No, no, no. Missing only is informed. And whether they found or not is not a news, and no one is interested. At least 10,000 women actually are missing every year actually, officially in India. Every year, 10,000 girls. Where they go, what happens, nobody knows. And look, one more tragic. There are 140 sati temples where women are forced to perform sati. Even today, there are actually Sati temples. You know, William Bentinck actually way back in 1825 actually abolished Sati. When the husband dies, I'll tell you, the wife also should actually jump into the funeral pyre and die. That is what is Sati. Because in order to, in fact, keep their honor upright, they must actually jump and die. That is the thing. But Bentinck made a rule. Subsequently, you also actually made a rule, as a consequence of which we try to, in fact, stop this actual practice totally. Still not been able to stop it, I'll tell you. Even now, I'll tell you, occasionally here and there, Sati do it. There are 140 Sati temples. In Sati temples actually are the temples where actually Sati system is worshipped, accepted. Not that every year actually Sati is committed there. But Sati temple, the concept actually is worshipped. You know why actually these days Sati actually is committed? To grab the property share. Say brother's wife is dead. Brother is dead. His wife actually remains with us, we'll have to give her a share. So therefore, what we do, we force her to commit sati, so that if she also dies, we can get the property. That is one. Secondly, to restrain her from developing so-called illicit relationship. Any young wife who loses actually the husband, and without husband, she might develop some kind of an illicit relationship. That is a family dishonor. In order to avoid that, they force her to commit suicide, sati, and feed the avarice of priests. Now, a priestly class, I'll tell you, when one sati is conducted, they get a lot of actually benefits like fees and all that. So they encourage actually sati because they will get actually money out of that. And some of the jealous husbands, the husband dies. Oh, if in my absence, my wife actually will go behind somebody who is so jealous, he says, you should also come with me. You should also come with me. So therefore, they force the wife actually to commit suicide. And many times, actually, some of them actually want to avoid the stigma of womanhood. In India, marriage is a very sacred thing. And marriage, I will tell you, for a man actually is done once a life. And earlier it was there that if the wife dies, he must remain a widower. If the husband dies, the woman actually should remain a widow. A widow. But over a period of time, I will tell you, men somehow managed to, in fact, actually marry and take a second wife. Somehow, actually, women were not given that kind of a chance. That is why we made a law called Widow Remarriage Act. We passed. We encouraged women who are widows to remarry and actually live a normal life. And sometimes I'll tell you, there is a kind of a practice, the conjugal relationship, the marriage relationship between husband and wife. It should continue even after death of the husband. Therefore, the wife also should die, so that together they can be in heaven or hell or whatever. These are the reasons, I'll tell you, why actually sati is still encouraged in this country. Over 3 lakh women are kidnapped every year, I'll tell you. Over 3 lakh women are kidnapped, raped, molested every year. In some cases, I'll tell you, even women are killed. In 2017, 40,000 rapes are committed in India in 2017. But Nirbhaya case, you must have heard. The Delhi girl actually was raped. You must have heard it, right? After that case, we brought in actually several changes in the law. And the number of rapes actually have come down. For a population of 145 crore in India, about 33,000 rapes actually take place in a year. To me, that is not a big number, because America, with a 33 crore population, they have a data where not less than 3 lakh women actually get raped every year. For 33 crore actually population of America, 3 lakh rapes, whereas 145 crore population actually of India, only 33,000 rapes. That the number is quite small for various reasons. One, Indian men actually are bound by certain actually practices of sanity. They treat actually women as their sisters or their mothers. And law is also very strict. If someone actually commits any kind of an offense, he'll be strictly punished. These are where America is a free society. I'll tell you, they can do anything they like. And what is the legal response? I told you. So these are all, I'll tell you, atrocities committed against women. For nearly half an hour, more than half an hour, I spoke about that. But what the law and the legal system is doing, if you ask, so no other country has as many laws as we have. I'll tell you, as many laws as we have, no other country. And look, not in fact actually protect women. These are some of the very important 8 laws I'm actually going to speak about. One is Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005. So women actually within the domestic actually sphere, they are being actually harassed and cruelly treated. To prevent it, we brought this law in 2005, where any man committing any cruelty against any woman within the family is liable actually for punishment. The woman actually is open for some kind of benefit or protection actually from the legal system. In 2005, it was made. And Indian Penal Code, which we now actually call Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita, has at least actually more than nearly 2 dozens actually of provisions only to protect women, only to protect women. And we have this Dowry Prohibition Act 1961. You all know it, Dowry Prohibition Act. It says dowry prohibition, where a man who is actually marrying a woman is not supposed to take dowry. If at all, if he takes dowry, he is actually liable for punishment, up to 5 years of punishment, and equivalent to that dowry he has demanded will be the fine. But here we have made a provision where the dowry giver as well as the taker, both should be punished. Unless there is a giver, there will not be a taker. Unless there is a taker, there will not be a giver. So they are hand in glove. So therefore, both of them actually should be punished. But what happens in our case? Have you ever actually heard of a case only where there is actually dowry demand, the person is punished? Absolutely not, I will tell you. In India, they say the minimum dowry that is actually expected from any person who is getting married actually is not less than 30,000 rupees. The minimum dowry, any idiot in India who wants to marry, the minimum dowry is 30,000 rupees. Though that person is absolutely, I'll tell you, useless fellow, having no job, nothing. If he wants to marry, ಅಂದ್ರೆ 30,000 ದುಡ್ಡು ಕೊಡಿ ಅಂತ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ. Why ಅಂದ್ರೆ I am getting married. That is why you give me 30,000 rupees. And if you say I don't want to take dowry, andre chances of you getting married is very remote. Because when you say you don't take dowry, people suspect you. There must be something wrong with you. That's why. Because of this compulsion, if you demand only say some amount, say like 50,000 or 1 lakh, you give me 1 lakh rupees, andre you will never get married, because when you demand less, they suspect more. There must be something wrong with it. That is why you're demanding less on that. So this is how actually the whole situation is. And prohibition of child marriage act. I'll tell you, 40% of the child marriages that take place in the world take place in India. 40%. Population actually is under 45 crore, I'll tell you. Because of that, the number is more. Not only that, I'll tell you, marriage actually is a family obligation in India. It is not a choice. It is not a social need. It is an obligation. In most of the families, I'll tell you, a girl actually grown-ups becomes actually a matured girl. The first and the foremost thing actually, most of the families in India think that she should actually get married. And job and career is there, but marriage is equally important. So in this actually kind of a rat race, I'll tell you, many young children actually get come under actually this crossfire. And preconception and prenatal diagnostic techniques. I told you, so many people, what they do is they try to abort the child if the child happens to be a female child. Right? So in order to prevent that, actually in 1994, you brought this particular act. Any child, female child actually is aborted, because in 1971, we brought an act called Termination of Pregnancy Act, Legal Termination of Pregnancy Act, where only for 4 or 5 reasons abortion is permitted. For rest of the reasons, there is no abortion at all. If any abortion or termination is done, 7 years of imprisonment will be there. Only for actually 4 or 5. One is the pregnancy due to rape. Secondly, failure of contraceptives. If the child is mentally and physically so bad, allowed to be born, lifelong the child actually would be an idiot, then you can actually abort it. And if the birth actually the child actually causes the death of the mother, then you can cause this thing, termination. But for these reasons, I'll tell you, for any reason, there is no termination actually of pregnancy at all. It is not permitted. And sexual harassment at workplace. This was the act which came into existence in 2013. It is said, I told you, nearly 89% of the women actually face one or the other kind of sexual harassment at workplace. So in order to prevent that, this act actually came into existence in 2013. And POXO is another very important act, where it is the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act is called. Children are protected under this act from sexual offences. So this is a very important actually act. All these actually, I did not just this act, there are other acts also, but these are the prominent acts which protect the women actually from any kind of a physical violence. These are the major offenses we commit. Rape, I told you, per year actually about 33,000 rapes actually take place in India. Marital rape. Marital rape means the husband committing rape against the woman. In two circumstances, because recently in Delhi, what happened was a case actually was filed by a woman in the police station saying that her husband actually was too violent actually in sexual intercourse. It is nothing but actual rape. And this the case actually was taken in appeal to the High Court, where two judges actually sat. One of the judge actually said, I do not hesitate saying that actually the husband has committed rape of this wife. This is a very dangerous kind of a thing, because if the judge says that it is a marital rape, then it becomes law. And if it is not properly used, I'll tell you, it can be absolutely abused. Absolutely abused. In Western countries, I'll tell you, marital rape actually is an offense. The husband could be prosecuted actually for rape of his own wife. When the wife doesn't give consent, the husband actually enters into some kind of a sexual act. It is indeed rape. In India, we have not still recognized it. Domestic violence, I told you. Domestic violence actually within the family. Violence, not necessarily physical one. It could be mental torture also. And dowry violence. So we have actually two laws. Earlier we had 498 and 304B. Now it has been actually changed. I'll tell you, from 80 to 84, they talk about that. And acid throwing, which I already spoken. Forced marriage. Many marriages in India actually are forced marriages, where the girl is not interested because of actually family pressure, social pressure, peer pressure. Sometimes they get married, and the marriage actually will be a failed marriage. And stacking, this is a new offense that was introduced in 2013. What is it actually stacking? Stacking is nothing but where a woman actually is being followed, online or physically. A girl actually is followed, a woman is followed, and wherever she goes actually, and she is actually proposed. I mean, the man actually proposes to her. I like her, I want to marry, etc., etc. If the woman agrees, I'll tell you, it is none of our business. If the woman refuses, then it becomes actually stacking. Say, for example, a man actually goes behind a woman, asks and proposes her, and the woman accepts. It is not our business, because they are grown-up adults, and with mutual consent, they want to have a kind of a relationship. Nothing wrong in it. Nothing wrong in it. If the woman refuses, the man still pursues, then it is actually called stacking. Genital mutilation, I have already spoken. Human trafficking. Not less than actually 10 lakh people every year in the world actually are being bought and sold for sex slavery. 10 lakh, not less than 10 lakh. In India alone, actually 5 to 6 lakh actually people are bought and sold only for sexual pleasure. And India imports, there are girls, at least 5,000 girls actually brought in from Nepal for sex trade actually in India. 5,000 per year, because they are good looking. There is a demand actually for a Nepalese girl actually in India for the customers. And the next is human trafficking and mistreatment of widows. So widows actually in India is a miserable life, because if she is an employee, no problem. If she is not an employee, depends actually on the husband's earning, then I'll tell you, the in-laws and all actually the problem. We have a set of rules here where the women actually, or widows, are protected. And sometimes actually they get the job of the husband, or they get actually the benefits of the dead husband's benefit will have to go to the wife, etc., etc. And accused of witchcraft and state violence. State violence is actually our laws where actually make unreasonable restrictions actually on people's freedom. Is also a kind of actually violence against actually women, major thing. So in that, now you might actually ask me, what are actually the legal privileges that are actually available to women to do it? One is free legal aid. I don't know whether any of you actually has gone to the court and have tasted actually a litigation experience. I'll tell you, it is really harrowing, because litigation will not end soon, and you will have to keep spending. And sometimes you even if you think that actually you have a very strong case, you might lose it. It all depends on various factors, the kind of lawyer, the kind of judge you had, and the evidence that you could actually muster. All these things actually matter, right? But not many people actually could afford. You believe it or not, I'll tell you, the highest earning profession in India is legal profession. Will you believe that actually some of the advocates in Delhi, per day they earn more than 1 crore? Their per day earning actually is more than 1 crore. In Bangalore city, I'll tell you, sometimes they earn 30 to 40 lakhs per day. This is the earning. And those lawyers are the ones, I'll tell you, who assure the client that I'm going to win your case by hook or crook. Right? So, under these circumstances, ordinary people like us, if we are actually involved in a legal battle, how long can we feed actually a lawyer to get the case? There is no guarantee that actually you get a judgment actually at the earliest within a short period of time. In India, I'll tell you, delay is the norm. Delay is the norm. And no case actually will ever be disposed of so early. So, therefore, under these circumstances, in order to help actually poor people, there is a scheme called free legal aid. 15 categories of people are given free legal aid. Means their court fees actually will be paid by the government. Free lawyers will be given. And if they want to go in appeal, I'll tell you, in appeal courts, fees and lawyers will be given. This free legal aid actually is available at the trial court to the Supreme Court. 15 categories, including women. And SC, STs, I'll tell you, physically handicapped, and various actually categories of people, 15 categories of people. And you will have a lawyer, I'll tell you, free of cost, provided actually by the government to defend yourself. But sometimes I'll tell you, there will not be this level playing ground. A free lawyer versus actually a paid lawyer, you know the difference. A free lawyer is one, I'll tell you, he may not actually put his heart and soul into the case because he is given a meager sum and he has to do it for his livelihood. He does it actually as a routine. But whereas actually a paid lawyer is one, I'll tell you, when he is given actually for a case 10 lakh rupees or 20 lakh rupees, it becomes a challenge for him to win the case. He does everything so meticulously, does his homework so beautifully, chances of winning the case is more. So free legal aid actually is given. So this is one advantage. Any woman, I'll tell you, can actually take free legal aid right from the trial to the Supreme Court. Secondly, right to privacy for recording statement. If a woman actually is alleged of some crime or accused of some kind of a crime, if a statement is to be given, the statement actually should be given keeping actually privacy in mind. Means her privacy should never be disclosed. See, I'll tell you, a rape victim's name should not be disclosed. That is the rule. A girl actually has been raped, and you will never find actually the girl's name or photo or the pictures in media, because her privacy should be protected. If anybody actually reveals her identity or picture, I'll tell you, will be punished actually with 6 months imprisonment. So newspaper, news channels, etc., they are not supposed to. That's the reason why sometimes they morph the face or give a pseudonym. So Nirbhaya is not the name of that girl actually was raped in Delhi. Her name is some singer. But it was actually a pseudonym that was given only to, in fact, identify her. That was not her name. And no time to limit for filing FIR. Say, for example, an offense has been committed. Should there be a time limit within which I'll tell you must go and actually file a case? Say, now actually Mysore is busy with Dasara. Someone actually comes to the police station. He says, sir, 2 years ago I came for Dasara. While going, actually somebody picked my pocket. So at that time I was not able to file a complaint. Now I am coming actually after 2 years to see Dasara. Please take that complaint which happened 2 years ago. If you are a police officer, will you register it? And the police officer will ask, how much money was there in the person? He says 25 rupees, sir. Will you ever register the case? There is a time limit. You can't simply come after 5 years, 10 years to say a case happened actually 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you register. No. There is a limitation for each case. But as far as women offenses are concerned, offenses relating to women are concerned, I'll tell you, there is no time limit at all. So, for example, a woman actually says, 3 years ago, this fellow committed rape against me. I could not actually file a case because he was threatening me. Take now, Andre, the police has to take. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, this idiot actually raped me. I was not able to, in fact, actually file complaint at that time. Now I am filing. Register it. So there is no time limit at all for certain of the sexual offences, against women under law. They can file the case at any point of time. For all other cases, I'll tell you, there is a limitation. There is a limitation. Complaints through email, you do not have to go to police station. No, most of the people do not like to go to police station. I don't know how many of you have ever gone to the police station. No, not all actually who go to the police station should actually go and file a criminal case. Many people go to police station for various other purposes. Verification, passport verification and various other verification also go. There are good things also happen in police station, not necessarily crimes, right? But not many actually like to go to police station. So if you want to file a complaint, you can actually email a complaint to the police station. They're supposed to take note of that email. And police cannot refuse to register a case. This was actually done in 2013 amendment, where many of the police officers actually were reluctant to register a case, a rape case. Once a case is registered, I'll tell you, the police must conduct investigation and file A report or B report or C report. And it is a very, very tedious job. Therefore, they would refuse to register a complaint stating that rape has not taken place at all, they would say. Now, the law has come. Any woman who walks into the police station, says she has been sexually assaulted or harassed or whatever it is, the police officer must register a case. If he refuses to register the case, he will be punished with 6 months imprisonment. Any woman walks into the police station, she has to be heard. If there is a complaint, he must actually take. And a woman cannot be called to the police station for inquiry. The police officer should actually go to the woman's house and actually seek information. No question of, unless and until a prima facie case where the accused actually is found on the crime scene, then you can take them to the police station and lady police officer actually will handle it. For any other case, you can't simply be called like men to the police station. And protection of identity by oneself. You have every right to protect your identity. You can say, I'm giving actually this complaint that theft has taken in my place, but I do not want to reveal my name actually in public. You can certainly say, and your privacy should be protected at any cost. Your privacy cannot be violated. And doctor can't decide. I'll tell you, when doctor actually wants to, in fact, actually examine a woman, the women actually have the say. What is to be examined, what is not to be examined, I'll tell you. In any of the rape cases, I'll tell you, the first and the foremost thing the police must do actually is subject her to medical examination. This medical examination was another harassment for women. A male medical officer actually would examine a rape victim actually touching all those actually parts of the body, putting her actually under a lot of humiliation. To avoid that, what they have done now is, by amending the act, they say that if a woman is to be medically examined, it has to be a woman doctor only. It has to be a woman. If a woman doctor is not at all available, at least in the presence of a woman, in the presence of a respected woman actually should be conducted. So doctors, I'll tell you, in the name of medical examination, I'll tell you, they would humiliate and invade actually the body of a woman, which is not permitted. If you say, I don't want this to be checked or examined, the doctor simply should actually shut his mouth and keep quiet. He is not supposed to. So your decision, it is your discretion. Whether certain of the parts of the body should be examined or not, it is up to you to decide. And not only that, your employers also must actually protect you. It is not just the responsibility of the state. Your employer, where you actually have been employed, the employer of your employment should also have a greater responsibility of protecting women as long as they stay actually within the precincts of their employment. So these are minimum actually legal privileges a woman actually enjoys. Now coming to transgenders, where most of the people actually think that somehow actually it is difficult for us to, in fact, to treat these transgenders actually as equal to man and a woman. So I'll tell you, their population, I told you, is hardly about actually 5 to 6 lakh. 4.8 actually according to 2011 census, but it may be around actually 5 to 6 lakh, the population. But their life actually is a big mystery. I don't know whether actually you have carefully watched them or not. If you just have watched it, most of these transgenders actually do not live beyond 35 and 40. They commit suicide. Because life actually is such a big misery. They can't get employment. They have to beg. In public places, they will be humiliated. Nobody entertains them. Even the parents disown them. Parents disown them. Brothers actually do not actually entertain those people. Relatives actually look down in contempt. That is the reason why they form their own actually community, live actually with mutual actually some kind of benefit. So this is the tragedy. And the most unfortunate thing is our law also all these days did not actually help them much. Of late, recently, the many other decisions, court decisions, especially the High Court, Supreme Court decisions, and some other laws have protected. The Supreme Court said a transgender also has the voting right. She should be given identity. She should be given employment. All these things. Transgender people are people who have a gender identity or gender expression that differs from their assigned sex. She is woman to look at, but she has actually more female features. He is a man to look at, but that man has more female features. So the assigned sex is something, and their attributes and actually qualities are different. This is exactly what is actually called gender transgenders. They are called by different names: lesbians, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, questioning, intersex, asexual, aromatic. That is why they call it LGBTQ plus. LGBT, these five plus there are other discrimination. People face certain legal and social difficulties not experienced by non-LGBTs. I and you don't face such these problems. When we walk on the road, I'll tell you, we don't. In a similar actually fashion, if an LGBT person actually walks on the public road, I'll tell you, many people look at her actually curiously, pass comments, and try to meddle with her. Right? This is the problem. Sexual activity between two people of the same gender was illegal. This is called what is actually called unnatural actually law. I mean offense they called it. 377 of Indian Penal Code. Now actually it has been abolished. It is not there. 377 it said the sexual activity between people of same sex, man and man, woman and woman. I'll tell you, is unnatural sex. Or man with woman in an unnatural manner, woman with man actually in unnatural manner. And not only that, I'll tell you, people of very close relation, blood relationship, like father and daughter, the mother and son, these are all prohibited laws, prohibited actually in law, right? Sexual activity between same gender was illegal, and same sex couples cannot legally marry and obtain a civil. In 2009, a case actually took place actually in Delhi, which I'm actually going to speak next, where I come to that point and explain that case. India does, however, legally recognize hijras. We have recognized actually these transgenders. They are called hijras, or gender separate from men and women. We know it. So earlier, I'll tell you, those days, I'll tell you, in those days where actually kings and actually emperors are there, there's a huge department, employment opportunity for these hijras, because kings used to have plenty of wives. To guard them, they put hijras. It is the most safe bet, right? They could not actually put men because the men actually could misuse their wives. Women may not be able to, in fact, manage. Hijras they would put, and they would actually protect actually the queens. That was that. But these days, we don't actually have any specific actually work as such for them. According to Transgender actually Persons Protection Act 2019, it has a wonderful actually definition. It says a transgender person is defined as an individual whose gender identity does not match with the gender assigned at birth. At birth, the child was born as a female child. As the child grew, it became male. At birth, the child was male, and as the child actually grew, it exhibited actually features of a female. This is exactly what is transgender. So this definition includes trans persons with intersex variations, genderqueer individuals, and those with specific socio-cultural identities such as Kinnar, Hijra, Aravani, Jogta. They are recognized as third gender. They are recognized as population, as I told you about, actually roughly about 5 lakhs. Literacy rate is 46%. Please take note of this. 46%. And 34% actually are absolute illiterates. Employment rate is 38%. Employment means not generally a kind of actually in an organized sector, some kind of an employment, only 38%. It only goes to show systematically we have excluded actually from them from mainstream. Only three transgenders considered actually in 2024 elections. Only three people contested. I'm sure I'll tell you most of them actually must have lost miserably. Right? They have. And 92% of transgenders deprived of their right to participate in any form of economic activity. Any kind of an economic activity means a regular job, some kind of actually work which actually where they can earn some money. They have been totally excluded. They are not given, right? Any kind of 92% of these transgenders face verbal and physical violence by police and healthcare workers. This is where exactly they confront, no? The police. When these people come in public, the police actually harass them. And when they go actually for healthcare facilities, health workers harass. 92% of them actually harass. That is there. And homosexual intercourse, I'll tell you, as I mentioned actually under 377 actually of Indian Penal Code, it was punishable. A man and man actually having some kind of a relationship, I'll tell you, it was punishable actually with life imprisonment and 10 years imprisonment. A man and man actually have some kind of relationship under 10 years of imprisonment. This was questioned actually in Delhi High Court in 2009, saying that I'll tell you it's a human right. A man has the right to choose a woman or a woman actually as a partner. Man or a woman is a partner. It's a human right. Why are you criminalizing it? Don't ever criminalize it. It is like saying, I like jamuns, therefore I make a law. Every one of you should eat jamun. If at all, if you eat jalebi, you will be punished with 3 months imprisonment. What would you say? You would simply say, I have gone mad, isn't it? Similarly, I'll tell you, a man actually wants to have his companion as a man or a woman. That is his choice. That is his choice. You can't interfere. Delhi High Court agreed, accepted it. And homosexuality and lesbianism actually became legalized actually act. And there was a jubilation for these people. But it was taken in appeal to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court reversed it again. It said, no, nothing doing. This law cannot be made actually in the court. It has to be made in the parliament. Once again, it was, in application actually to review the decision actually came. In 2018, the same Supreme Court once again revised its actually decision, said, so same-sex relationship actually is not an offense. So 377 was partially struck down, saying that man and woman actually can have some kind of relationship, and women and women actually can have some. There are 6 countries in the world where men can marry men, women can marry women. Same-sex marriage is possible. So when in 2018, when decision came out, one more actually petition was filed that we must be allowed to marry. We must allowed to marry. 14 long days, I'll tell you, Supreme Court heard this matter, whether actually a man can be allowed to marry another man. This matter actually was heard by Supreme Court actually for 14 days. And our Advocate General actually posed many, many uncomfortable questions. He said, okay, sir, we'll make actually marriage a legal marriage. A man can marry another man, okay, we'll make it. The question actually comes into picture, tomorrow they will not actually get a child and they will certainly adopt a child. And many actually same-sex marriage people actually adopted the child. If they adopt a child, the child, whom should the child call mother and whom should the child call father? Who is mummy and who is daddy? In West, they say father 1 and father 2. The child, they say dad 1, dad 2. Something like that actually it calls. Because there are 2 dads, there are no mothers there. Not only that, I'll tell you, if tomorrow, if they want to divorce, who has to pay compensation to whom? Not one, I'll tell you, at least 5 laws you have to amend. I'll tell you, don't invite this problem. Come on, tell me, you are decriminalized it. So, man and man, same-sex marriage, you're decriminalized. Why you want to marry them? Why you want to marry them? And our Chief Justice actually was very much interested in actually making it legal. But luckily, the majority of the judges have said nothing doing. Time has not come. There are only 6 countries in the world, I'll tell you, who have made actually same-sex marriage legally valid. In Ireland, in Australia, man can marry another man, but not in India. And this is what actually happened. And next is The states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala in India were the first states to introduce a transgender actual welfare policy. These states, we must actually salute these states because they brought a policy for transgenders. They have a huge number of actually transgenders. According to that, transgender people can access to free sex reassignment surgery. When a child born actually as a male child subsequently develops actually female features, they can go to a hospital and get actually their sex reassigned. A boy can actually become a girl actually can become boy because a medical procedure actually required to be done to complete the process actually of transferring actually sex assignment. So that is done free of cost actually in these two states. A man says, I have female features, I want to be a female. So do actually necessary surgeries. It is done actually free of cost, both in Tamil Nadu and in government hospitals. Free housing program. These people should be given more than anybody else actually free housing because these people do not get regular job, nor actually paid job. Therefore, they should be given free housing. Tamil Nadu and various citizenship documents, your Aadhaar, your PAN, your old age actually card, your all actually citizenship documents. These people should be. And admission in government college is full scholarship for higher studies. If any of these actually transgender takes admission to school, no fees. They go to college, full free and full scholarship. They should be given. Wherever actually go and whichever actually course they do it, it should be done because hardly anybody comes to the college. If somebody comes, it becomes our responsibility. And alternate sources of livelihood. What these people are doing, they're begging. You know what they do? You have seen actually people, they come actually to the shops on Fridays and some days, they create a scene there. In order to avoid that scene, the shopkeeper actually will give some money. Unless and until he creates actually that kind of a scene, nobody actually will part with the money. So deliberately. Or they go to these marriage halls, when the marriage is committing, they create a scene there. So the marriage people actually give 500 or 1000 rupees and they will have food there and go. These are actually they're earning their livelihood. There is no pension for them. There is no regular salary for them. Nobody actually takes care of them. So therefore, they must actually be given an alternate. In Karnataka, these days, slowly, in fact, actually they are getting. In Tamil Nadu, there are Tamil TV news readers, there are policemen, and there are people actually in various other departments. In Karnataka also, they have joined actually government service, because they should be given. And Tamil Nadu was also first state to form a transgender welfare board with a representative from the transgender community. In transgender actually welfare board, who should be there? Transgender should be there, not INU. Transgender should be there because they decide actually what is the need. And in 2016, Kerala started implementing SRS through government hospitals. Sex reassignment surgery freely in government hospital. Kerala state. But in Karnataka, no, we are not started it. We are not actually been that sensitive. In India, one group of transgender people are called Hijras. You know it, Hijras. They were legally granted voting rights as a third sex in 1994 by Supreme Court ruling. 1994, Hijra should be given. Due to alleged legal ambiguity of the procedure, Indian transgender individuals do not have access to safe medical facilities. See, that is why there are more than 5 varieties actually of these transgenders. I told you, queer, that, this, etc., right? So there is no uniformity. When this particular law in 2019 actually was brought in, huge consultation took place. But most of these transgenders objected to it, I'll tell you. They should have welcomed actually some kind of a welfare schemes. But the objection came because they had so much of a difference opinion amongst their own actually divisions. And on 15th April 2014, Supreme Court declared transgender people as a socially, economically backward class. So they are OBCs, other backward classes. In education and job, also directed union state government to frame welfare schemes for them. So what is actually the welfare scheme available to OBCs will also be automatically available to these people. What exactly this 2019 Act actually speaks? This 2019 Act actually says guaranteeing rights and entitlements reservation in government jobs up to 2%. Up to 2%. Their population is not up to 2%, hardly 5 lakh out of 145 crore people, a very fraction of a percentage. But still, they say, right, 2% should be given. You don't find actually competent people, qualified people to be there. Nothing wrong in actually providing actually 2%. If they are not there, somebody else actually will be. Guaranteeing rights 2% and legal aid, pensions, unemployment allowance, and skill development for transgender people shall be given. All these things. It also contains provisions to prohibit discrimination in employment. Once they are employed, I'll tell you, there should not be any kind of a discrimination. Someone actually is found discriminating, yeah, transgender, it should be dealt with according to the provisions of law. It and employment prevent abuse. This is a gross misjustice that is actually being done. They are abused. And violence and exploitation of transgender people. Transgender people actually are the most exploited people, right? The Act also provides for the establishment of welfare boards at the center and state level, transgender rights courts. They have been given a separate court. If they have any issues, they can go straight away to that court. If you go to the ordinary court, I'll tell you, you'll get a judgment after 20 years. Right? So therefore, you must actually go to those courts which are exclusively meant for these things, right? That should be done. So these are some of actually the provisions of Transgender Protection Act. And this is regarding actually gender sensitization. So in India, I'll tell you, the gender sensitization actually program is a must, because you forget actually about actually the educated people like you and me, or in the organized sector, not much of actually, discrimination is done. At the society level, at the lower ranks, I'll tell you, even today, the discrimination is rampant. So it becomes a responsibility, in fact, because, I still don't understand why actually men discriminate women, because their mothers actually are women, their daughters are women, their wives are women, I'll tell you. I still don't find actually why a woman should be discriminated. And many times I'll tell you, certain jobs they say, no women here. But in India, I'll tell you, no other country actually has given as much rights actually as India has given to women, I'll tell you. We have actually plenty of actually offices actually in army, in combat areas. In combat areas, I'll tell you, where hardly very few men who are capable of actually fighting in actually combat areas are allowed. But these days, I'll tell you, any woman actually can prefer. Right? And some of our sophisticated actually flights are being actually piloted by whom? Women. And we have sent actually our women actually to space, if not from India, from America. The women actually are there, I'll tell you, in almost all fields, I'll tell you. Pulwama attack, I'll tell you, most of actually women officers, you have seen actually in the TV. So this is one actually very positive actually development. But however, if we go deep into the grassroots level, we still actually find plenty of discrimination. That should not be there. The purpose of actually of such awareness program actually is to create a kind of a sensitivity to the problems actually of women. So that is why it is said, I'll tell you, look at the thing. In the parliament, we have only 89 actually female members. 89. In Karnataka Assembly, hardly actually 7 or 8. See, out of actually 243 MPs, I'll tell you, only 89 actually women, though their population is nearly 50%. This is something I can't understand, because you might say, sir, what is wrong actually in having less number? Because in the parliament, once law is made, it's equally applicable to all men and women. No, you are not understood, I'll tell you. A law which is actually required to be made for a woman, which can take care of all the interests of the women, can be proposed only by women, not by men. Because men can only understand your problems, sir. They can't realize your problems. Women sitting here must actually tell me, as a man, I can understand your problem, but can I ever realize your problem? Can I feel the problem? Can I experience the problem? We need actually women in parliament, so that actually laws can be made, what is really required actually for women. We need actually such people in judiciary, because a woman's problem actually can be understood by a woman properly. See, because divorce, see, in one of the cases, a person actually filed a divorce case. The judge actually was a woman judge. He said, my wife is very cruel, he treats me like. The woman judge said, no problem, you are not in a hurry, we'll give you actually divorce at a later date, be there. Because she knew how husbands actually treat the husbands. So therefore, I'll tell you, we need someone who at the decision level making understand the people who are actually oppressed. So that is why our multicultural society, actually in all our actually higher echelons of administration, all sections of people should be there. All sections. SCs, STs, OBCs, women, queer, and transgenders. Because they can actually project their actually views, and a policy can be evolved, laws can actually be